Add CS can quietly turn into a backdoor into your domain when templates or CA settings are sloppy. In this module, we'll walk through how attackers abuse those weaknesses, and then flip perspective so you can systematically find and close them as an admin. You've already built a full PKI. From core concepts and trust through ADCS deployment, templates, and daily operations. You've also hardened your CAs and templates. Now we'll connect the dots and show how just a few bad choices can silently undo that security. AdCS sits on the trust path for almost everything in the domain. If it issues a certificate to a user, computer, service, VPN, Wi-Fi, or smart card, that certificate can act like a reusable password. Because enterprise CAs integrate with Active Directory, a certificate mapped to an admin account effectively becomes a domain-privileged credential. So a single PKI misconfiguration can cascade into broken confidentiality, bypassed authentication, incorrect authorization, and even business outages. Think of certificates as reusable proof of identity. Once a trusted CA issues one, a user or device can authenticate without ever typing a password. The service checks the certificate's chain, revocation status, intended usage, and how its subject or UPN maps to an account. If any of those checks are wrong or too permissive, access decisions can be completely undermined. That's why issuing and managing certificates must be treated as carefully as passwords, Kerberos, or privileged accounts. Now step back and look at ADCS as a series of security gates. First, who's allowed to request certificates, and can they request them on behalf of other identities? Next, what can those certificates actually do? Authenticate users and machines, or just encrypt and sign? Then, who controls templates, approvals, and CA administration? Finally, consider the full lifecycle: request, issuance, use, renewal, revocation, and audit. Any weak gate in this chain becomes an attack path. To make ADCS risk more manageable, group issues into 4 buckets. First, open enrollment. Who can request which templates? If large or untrusted groups can enroll, you've already lost control. Second, unsafe identity. Can the requester choose the subject or SAN and pretend to be someone else? Third, login and access. Any template with authentication EKUs might enable logon. Finally, excessive privileges. Overly powerful CA, template, or enrollment agent rights can bypass every other safeguard. Enrollment permissions are a classic convenience versus control trade-off. If domain users or domain computers can enroll, you've effectively said anyone can request that certificate. That's acceptable for low-impact templates, but dangerous for anything that enables authentication, smart cards, or code signing. For sensitive templates, lock enrollment to specific security groups, assign a named business owner, and regularly verify that those permissions still match real, current requirements. Subject and SAN handling is your next control point. When a certificate subject or SAN comes directly from Active Directory, you're essentially saying, I trust the directory's view of this user or device. When those same fields can be typed in by the requester, you're saying, I trust whatever they claim. Because SANs often drive authentication, that's dangerous. Treat any template with requester-supplied identity data as privileged. Limit who can use them, enforce approvals, require justification, document ownership, and monitor them closely. Extended key usage values tell Windows what a certificate is allowed to do, so any EKU that enables authentication deserves special scrutiny. Client authentication and smart card logon often map directly to logon rights. If anyone can enroll for those templates, they can impersonate users or machines. Keep these templates narrow. Limit enrollment to trusted security groups. Confirm that authentication EKUs are actually needed. And avoid catch-all templates whose purposes and EKUs are broader than the business scenario requires. Approval workflow becomes the next safeguard. Manager approval only works when it's treated as a real security control, not a checkbox. For high-risk certificate templates, approvals must be mandatory, and the reviewer needs to understand the request, the identity involved, and why the certificate is sensitive. Avoid shared accounts, undocumented exceptions, and rubber stamping. Every approval should leave a clear audit trail, and those logs should be reviewed regularly to detect abuse, drift, or risky issuance patterns. Enrollment agents occupy a highly privileged position. They can ask the CA for certificates in someone else's name. If their permissions are broad, one compromised account can mint trusted identities for many users, bypassing normal approvals. To control that risk, tightly scope which templates they can use and which subjects they can represent, and keep this role separate from everyday admins. Then, treat their activity like high-value transactions. Log it, review it, and quickly investigate anything unusual. Underneath all of this is one key idea. Control of the CA equals control of trust. If someone can manage the CA, edit templates, or approve certificates, they can indirectly choose who your domain trusts for authentication. So lock down CA permissions and tightly control who can publish trusted CA and NT-auth entries. Treat CA servers like Tier 0 assets and separate routine certificate operations from high-impact CA administration whenever possible. Use a structured checklist as your recurring ADCS health exam. Start by walking templates. What they can issue, to whom, for how long, and with what approval requirements. Then verify who can enroll, auto-enroll, modify templates, and manage the CA. Next, confirm trust and delegation. Which enrollment agents and approvers can act for others, and which CAs are trusted in NT-auth. Finally, review auditing. What's logged, how often it's reviewed, and how you investigate suspicious certificates. When you review ADCS findings, think in terms of likelihood and impact. Templates that many users can enroll in, that issue authentication certificates, and that let requesters control identity data often land in the highest risk zone. Next, look for weak approvals, excessive CA admin rights, and loose enrollment agent permissions. Use a staged approach. Document, test restrictions, roll out changes, and monitor. And always confirm business dependencies before disabling any template. AdCS security ultimately comes down to 4 questions. Who can enroll? What identities they can claim? How issued certificates may be used? And who controls the CA? Your next step is to apply this lens as you audit templates, permissions, and agents. Then move into monitoring, governance, and hybrid PKI integration.